Good morning, chestnuts. I hope you've had a nice weekend and you're looking forward to Learning Journey this week. We're going to carry on looking at Oliver and the Seawigs, and hopefully before you've started this lesson, you've been able to listen to more of the story that I recorded. So if you haven't done that yet, I would suggest going to do that first and then coming back to this lesson. What we're going to be doing this morning is answering the question, can I infer a character's feelings? To do this successfully, we need to listen carefully to the story, explain what happens, explain how a character feels, and explain how you know. So I'm going to start by reading a little bit more of the story for you today, and this is what our work today is going to focus on. So make sure you're listening really carefully. Farsight Cove is quite close to Deepwater Bay, he told her. But they must both be miles and miles away by now. This island is moving, you see. It's been moving all night. Of course it has, said Iris. It's one of the Rambling Isles. The what? The Rambling Isles. They're not really islands at all. They're alive, although they're made of stone. They wander the oceans and they're always getting mistaken for ordinary islands. But really, they're more like very big stony giants. Oh, said Oliver. Well, where's it going? How on earth should I know? Asked Iris. You really do say the strangest things. I expect it's just rambling around collecting stuff. That's what Rambling Isles do. But I suppose you could always ask it. Oliver looked around, bewildered. How could he ask rocks and stones and grass where they were going? Well, he could ask them, but how could he expect them to reply? Oh, I'll do it, said Iris warily. She slapped the nearest rock as hard as she could. Hello, she shouted. The movement of the island changed. It slowed and turned from side to side. Mr. Culpepper woke with a squawk and demanded to know what was happening. Slowly, the island lifted from the sea. There was a rush and gurgle of falling water draining from its edges. It rose cliff high, and the waves rolled past it far below. Oliver went to its raggedy edge and looked over. He saw that the island was really just the top of a vast, stony head. The grass was its hair. Water ran down its face, limpets stubbled its cheeks. Seaweed and old carrier bags were tangled in its bushy eyebrows. Two big eyes peered up at Oliver. Chapter 3. Oliver was startled, and Oliver was not a boy who startled easily. It's got a face, he said. Of course it's got a face, said Iris. Oliver waved at the Rambling Isle. He said. Hello, Iris told it. He wants to know where you're going. The Rambling Isle watched them thoughtfully. It wasn't used to being talked to. It was years and years since it had spoken. It hadn't even realised that there was anybody on its head. Until these two small upside-down faces appeared. Please, said Oliver, I have to find those other islands. My mum and dad were on one. That's why I need to know where you're all going. The Rambling Isle opened its cave of a mouth. It cleared its throat with a crumbly rumble like masses of rock shearing and shifting deep in the earth. They are all going to the hallowed shallows, it said, for the night of the Seawigs. Oliver was starting to feel dizzy, hanging upside down like that. He sat upright. What's a Seawig? He asked. Haven't you heard? Said Iris. Every 7 years, the Rambling Isles all gather together at the hallowed shallows to show off their treasures. They love to collect things, you see, all the bits of flotsam that the sea washes up on their heads. They're very proud of their collections. On the night of the Seawigs, each of them wears a wig made of all the treasures it has gathered on its travels. The one with the finest wig is declared the winner. It is a great honour. Everyone makes a huge fuss of them. They become chief island for the next 7 years. And they get to order the other islands about if they want to, and choose all the best bits of wigs for themselves. I bet Thrumcap wins this time, said the island, or Dimsey. They always have the best sea wigs. Of course, they have crinkly, complicated coastlines. All sorts of interesting things get stuck on them. Most of what washes up on my shores washes straight off again. Look at me. All I have to show for my wanderings are a few bits of old rope and a stupid bird's nest. Oliver tried to think of something encouraging he could say that would cheer up the poor island. But it was true. Its wig was a mess. Its summit was mostly bald rock, with those tussocks of grassy hair sprouting here and there, and rather a lot of albatross poo, now that Oliver came to look critically at it. "Who are you talking to?" asked Mr. Culpepper, stalking importantly down the beach. "And whose nest is he calling stupid?" "I don't know whether I can be bothered making this journey," the island went on in its deep and mournful voice. "You can't imagine the wonderful seawigs which will be on display at the Hallowed Shallows, and there I'll be with my bit of rope and my bird's nest. The others will all laugh at me. Perhaps I'll just give it a miss this time." "No," said Oliver. He hung over the beach edge again. "You must go, or at least tell me how to get there so I can find Mum and Dad." "Oh, it's not a place you could get to, said Iris airily. "Not on your own." She hung upside down beside him with her wet hair dangling. "The Hallowed Shallows aren't that sort of place at all. They are the place where all the old things of the sea went to live once people in your world stopped believing in them. Actually, they're where I live too, only I came out to find the optician, and I couldn't, and now I can't see my way home either." She blinked short-sightedly. Oliver thought he saw tears beginning to gather in her eyes. He fetched the oily length of nylon rope he'd noticed on the tide line yesterday. He tied one end firmly round a rock, then lowered himself down in front of the island's face. "Did you hear that?" he said. "We both need to go to the Hallowed Shallows. Please say you'll take us there." "Oh, I don't," said the island glumly. Oliver frowned, swaying in front of those huge eyes like a hypnotist's watch. "Look, do you have a name?" he asked. "Me?" said the island dolefully. "A name? No, some of the bigger rambling isles have been mistaken for real islands by sailors and explorers who gave them the most splendid names. But no one ever noticed me." "Not at all," said Iris. "Well, someone put a sign up on me once when I went to sleep for a few years near the mouth of a river. But it fell off. Anyway, I can't go round calling myself Danger, Submerged Rocks, can I?" "Well, you need a name," said Oliver, looking up at those craggy features, at the clinging barnacles and clumps of weed. I'm going to call you Cliff." "Cliff," said the island, trying it out. He sounded pleased. "Cliff!" "Now listen, Cliff," said Oliver. "How long is it till this Seawigs contest?" "We gather at the Shallows tomorrow night," said Cliff. Iris nodded. "That's right. All my mermaid friends are going. They're going to perch on rocks and sing. It's completely lame." "Well then, Cliff," said Oliver, "you've got all of today and tomorrow to gather some really brilliant things to decorate your seawig. We'll help." "Will you?" sniffed the poor island, looking hopefully at them. "Will we?" asked Iris. "Course we will," said Oliver. "Let's think. What could be the best things you could possibly have on your wig? You've already got me and Iris and the inflatable dinghy." "He's got an albatross too," said Iris. "It can stand on top and spread its wings or something." "Excuse me," said Mr. Culpepper, coming to the pier over the edge beside her. "I am Diomedia Excellence. I am a not particularly fine specimen too. I am not some fun-fair attraction." "Spread its wings indeed." He sniffed loudly. "It seems to me that this island has gone to the dogs. It used to be such a nice, quiet place. Now I can hardly move for boys and mermaids. I don't like the sound of this Seawigs affair. It sounds like a lot of noise and bother to me." So, that's where we've got to in the story so far, and I think it's definitely getting to be quite exciting. What we're going to do first is just make sure that we were listening to the story really clearly. So what I've said here is discuss. Can you fill in the blanks? What you'll have noticed is I've covered up some words in blue, and what I want you to think about is what those words are going to be, and then I'll reveal them at the end. The first one says, every something years the rambling isles go to the Hallowed Shallows. Can you remember how many years? Did you get it? Every 7 years. The next one, the night of something is held there. What do they call it? the night of the Seawigs. The next one. The winner of the Night of the Seawigs is Something Island for the next 7 years. Can you remember? They are the Chief Island. Iris also comes from the Hallowed Shallows and has got lost looking for the beach. Remember what she's looking for because she can't see very well. The Optician. Someone, as Oliver names him, is an Eeyore-like figure who needs a good seawig to lift his spirits. Who can remember what Oliver has named the island? Cliff. We're just going to have a little think first about these two characters that we've got in the story, Oliver and Iris, and what happens to each character and how do they feel during what has happened. Remember, we've got Oliver, who started off quite sad because he's lost his parents. But think how his character's changed, how his feelings have changed now he's come across Iris and Cliff. He's now a little bit confused, but also intrigued. He's confused because he doesn't really know what to do. He's got to try and convince Cliff to go to the Hallowed Shallows, but he's also intrigued because he's coming across all these creatures that he didn't know existed. Then we've got Iris, who we know is a bit funny at times, and she sometimes is curious why Oliver doesn't know all the things she does. So I've said that she's knowledgeable about the festival. She taught Oliver all about what's going to happen at the Night of the Seawigs. But she's also quite lazy, because she didn't particularly want to help Cliff try and improve his wig. What we're going to be doing today is writing a diary entry as either Oliver or Iris. You can pick. And what you're going to be doing is recounting their meeting with Mr. Culpepper and each other, what they discuss about the Rambling Isles, the Hallowed Shallows, and the Night of the Seawigs, and their befriending and naming of Cliff. You're going to be creating a diary entry of things that they've thought about, what they might write at the end of the evening, because a lot has happened. We've got Iris, who swam into the island. Oliver and Iris met. They chat about what it's like being a mermaid and about Iris's poor eyesight. Iris tells Oliver about the Rambling Isles and the Night of the Seawigs. Oliver names Cliff and tells him they will help him with his seawig so they can go to the Hallowed Shallows and find his parents. What I've done is start to write a little example for you that you might want to adapt if you want to do a diary entry as Iris, but if not, have a go at writing one all by yourself. So I've written, I was just minding my own business, swimming to try and find the opticians, when out of nowhere came an island. Ouch. I swam straight into it. Of course, it was one of those Rambling Isles, but still, what I couldn't believe was that there was a boy on it. He was called Oliver and is really friendly. I feel bad because he's lost his parents. I hope Cliff, the island, and I can help him find them. All we need to do is decorate Cliff's wig and then head to the Hallowed Shallows for the festival. So you don't have to write too much, but I want you to think about how the characters speak in the story. You might want to listen back to the story I read earlier to try and get a clearer picture of how you want to write your diary. So just a last reminder, we're writing a diary entry as either Oliver or Iris, recounting what has happened so far. I look forward to reading them. Speak to you later.